Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
You're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.
Hey everybody, Merry Christmas. Welcome to Rob Nelson Live. It's the day after Christmas. This will be a short show, I promise, for those of you listening. It's the holidays. Thought about not doing the shows at all, but you know what? Gotta show up. It's commitment. And I thought I would just go down some crazy roadways tonight. And no, I'm not wiping my nose because I snort coke, because I had a little bit of a cold. All right, let's start with this. Maria Bucci. She is the chairwoman of the Democratic Committee in Cranston. She's 51 years old. Wow, it's in Connecticut. It's the second largest city in the state, Cranston. None of us really know Cranston, but whatever. Sorry, it's Rhode Island. What did I say? Connecticut? Sorry, it's Rhode Island. She's in a DUI traffic stop in East Greenwich, and the cop pulls her over. So like right before Christmas, week before Christmas, and eventually takes Bucci into custody. And so here's what's crazy. So she says, "You know who I am, right? What is with these people?" And by the way, I am not being sexist or racist or anything. I think this is a cultural thing, but it's women, white women especially, and sometimes black women, who seem most entitled when the cops pull them over to pull the who do you think I am. Now, I'm just going to tell you, it's like an old card. Like white guys pulled this card 20, 30, 40 years ago. You know who I am? Now, 40, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, even 30 years ago, it might have worked. Now it doesn't work. You don't pull that card. And if you're a guy driving, saying, do you know who I am is not going to benefit you. Sidebar story. I remember in mid 90s, I was at a bar in Washington, D.C. with Kevin Spacey, the actor, and I was working in the White House. And I've been kind of given the duty of Kevin Spacey wanted to hang out with the president, Clinton. Clinton didn't want to hang out with him. So they needed a reason. So they said Clinton was off doing something else. And somebody up there on the White House staff said, Rob, take Kevin Spacey out, take some of the young White House staffers and just go entertain him. So I did. So we get to a bar and Kevin Spacey, the bouncer says, we're closing. You can't come in. Kevin Spacey says, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? We're 6 words you can never say to just about anybody who has any authority, however small their authority is. And this bouncer looks at him and is like, I know exactly who you are. And you cannot come in my bar. It's sort of like you'd be better off to say, look, been a long day, came into DC, was going to hang with the president, didn't happen. Any chance we could just come in for half an hour? Here's $100, whatever. Mean a lot to me. Might get yourself in the door. Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Not getting you in the door. Not with the bouncers, not with the cops, not with anyone who has any microcosm of authority. You're in their world right now. This bouncer doesn't have to let you in. This cop doesn't have to let you go. Do you know who I am? Like, recognize me? Is most likely to not open the door, but slam it harder in your face, as is what happened with Kevin Spacey. We did get into another bar, separate sidebar to my sidebar, which I'm fond of doing lately, is that we had a young White House staffer with us who was a guy and good-looking guy. And Kevin Spacey couldn't keep his eyes off him. This is before Kevin Spacey was out as being gay or whatever he is, but he's definitely gay. He could be bi, but either way, more gay than straight. And just couldn't keep his eyes off this guy. And at one point we joked, we're like, we're all going to leave the table and leave you with Kevin. The kid's like, don't do it. I call him the kid. I wasn't that much older than him, but I was old enough to be in charge. He's like, don't. He's like 22. He's like, don't leave me with him. But here was my moment to tells. Tells matter. I'll come back to the tells at the end of my short episode. Every time a hot woman walked in, Kevin Spacey never noticed. Every time a hot guy walked in, the head turned, the jerk. Now, as a straight guy, I know how that works. Your head turns when you see a hot woman. Now, maybe you're careful or cautious. If you're around a girlfriend, your wife, or just even friends, you might just do the little eye avert. But Kevin Spacey's head spun on a swindle when he saw a hot guy, didn't even budge with a hot woman. The tells. Remember the tells before this episode ends. All right, let's go back to Maria Bucci, 51, chairwoman of the Democratic Committee in Cranston, the second largest city in Rhode Island, who says, do you know who I am? You know who I am, right? After he says he smelled alcohol on her breath and said she was driving erratically. He says, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are, miss. And then he pauses and says, and this is all on his body cam, which again, remember, folks, those of you who think, do you know who I am will work? They're all wearing body cam. It's all being recorded. It's like people who write stuff on social media. It's all going out there. It's all on the record. Whatever you're saying to him is being recorded. Equally important, whatever he's saying back to you is being recorded. So if he says, oh, yes, I know who you are. You're an important official. I will give you a pass. That's on his body cam. He might not want to say that for moral reasons, ethical reasons, the reasons like the bouncer in DC decades ago didn't want to let Kevin Spacey in. He might just not want to say it because it's going to be recorded. He can't say it. So how dumb are you to think he could? And how even dumber are you to not care that you're going to be recorded asking him to? It's like, here's a camera on you as you ask, can I bribe you? Well, how's that going to work if he says yes, knowing there's a camera? But for you, how are you going to come off and look that you just asked if you could bribe him? But she didn't think of this. Not, attributed to the Jim Beam or the gin and tonics or the, whiskey sours, whatever. He says, you can start throwing out names and start doing out what you need to do. It's not going to work with me. I'm telling you right now, I'm not the guy for that. Now, that is an honest statement of his integrity. I'm not the guy who's going to buy whatever names you drop, but you go ahead and throw them. Again, I'm going to say to that person, to Maria Bucci, how stupid are you to not know he's got a body camera on? And if he'd said anything else, he'd get in trouble. But I think he could also just say, I don't, and it doesn't matter. He's real clear. I'm not the guy you can do that with. Right? Utilizing power because you have it. This is the biggest mistake people in power make. They throw power around like it has force simply because they have a title. There's this old story. You probably know, the emperor with no clothes. Like, just because you have a title doesn't give you power and authority inherently. And in the world we live in, increasingly, power and authority is not judged by your title, but by your credibility. I am not saying there aren't people who can alter the outcome of a situation based on the true authority they have or based on a relationship they have. But simply throwing out your title won't do it. We'll come to this, and again, before the end, we're going to come back to Trump about this. All roads lead back to Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. He's like, I'm not the guy for that. Now, at one point, they say in the traffic stop, Bucci says, call my husband right now and call the attorney general and everybody else in town, because this is disgusting. God forbid I was a black person, I'd be arrested. Oh, good Lord. Now you're throwing the race card on top of it? The race card on top of the gender card, on top of the power card? The hole's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And by the way, I will be clear. You can influence an outcome with relationships. I once got pulled over I'm not going to say where, but in the traffic stop in Wisconsin. And I just said where, but not specifically where. And I'd been speeding and the cop was going to give me a ticket. And I called a friend who was above that cop and said, here's the sitch. I'm getting pulled over. I was speeding, haven't been drinking, nothing like that. Can you help me or not? Wasn't a like, you know who I was, can you help me or not? He said, give him the phone. Guy comes back to my car with my driver's license and insurance thing. And I'm like, here, so what are you doing? I'm like, just take my phone. Gets on the phone, talks to his superior, hands me back the phone, hands me back my driver's license and insurance. It's like, have a nice night. Sure, but I didn't pull some power card. I just called a friend who was superior who said, you know what? It's a good guy. If he wasn't drinking, let him go on the speeding. Fair enough. It's very different than, do you know who I am? Officer, do you know who I know? Do you know who I know? Because I'll call him. Well, that might have ended up in me getting a ticket because I might have called him, given him the phone. And he might have said, sorry, boss, I'm giving him a ticket. The power card doesn't generally work very well. The authentic. So this woman, Maria Bucci, ran for mayor in Cranston. She was on the city council 20 years ago and tried to run for the Rhode Island House of Reps. And she played that card. So eventually puts her in custody because she fails the sobriety tests. And she says, again, all on a body cam, you're a dick. Like, I'm not drinking, you're a loser. Okay, things a drunk person says, you're a dick, I'm not drinking. You're a loser. Okay. Wow. First of all, you are drinking. Secondly, he pulled you over because you were drinking. Third, he's done basic sobriety tests. Pretty sure you're drinking. And now you're acting like a drunk, being aggressive, abusive, and obnoxious. How's that going to play out? That's the end of the story. It's all I got, folks. I don't know what happens. We'll find out. What happens is next week she'll make an apology, said she was not herself. It's not who she is. She didn't mean to say the things she said, and she apologizes profusely to everyone, which again is as much BS as the first thing. First of all, it is who you are. Actually, those who say drinking brings out who people really are probably right. If you're a really nice person, you probably get happy and fun. If you're a really mean person, if you're a dick, you probably become an obnoxious asshole. It actually is who you are, and the alcohol showed it. You're an obnoxious, entitled, self-important person who felt because of your position, you could get out of whatever you wanted, and if you couldn't, you would demean and be verbally abusive to the person who was just doing their job. That's who you are. So actually, the statement I would love to hear would be, I'm a crappy person. And what I just did was crappy. And I leaned into my power and my entitlement. I took advantage of it. I was abusive and I was drinking. And for that, I can try to fix my ways, do better, and you all decide. I owe you all an apology, but I will not say that's not who I am because it is who I am. It's who I will be again if I'm ever caught with my pants down, so to speak, or my top up, or my insides exposed, however you want to frame it. Now, I will tell you quickly, just because I'm in story time, I did have an experience once where I was driving and I had been drinking and I should not have been driving. And I was in California and I was going to see a woman I was involved with at the time. And it was probably 3:30 in the morning. And I drove up a long road and it was a windy road, but I wasn't on the windy part. I was on the straightaway part. And I was probably going about 70 miles an hour, which wasn't crazy. And I was over the limit, I'm sure. I wasn't like, had not had so much to drink that I was like swerving around or anything. But I'm sure I would have failed a breathalyzer test or a blood test. And again, you don't have to be that high up on the alcohol thing to fail. I didn't get pulled over because I was driving erratically. I got pulled over because I was going 70 miles an hour in a 35 zone, which was also a school zone, although since school was closed, wasn't. But there happened to be a cop and flagged me at 70, doubled the speed limit, and just got behind me and pulled me over. When I got pulled over, I thought, okay, I'm speeding. I've been drinking. Now, am I like stuttering, out of control? No. Will I fail sobriety test? No, I'll probably pass sobriety test, but he'll know I'm drinking. He'll smell it on my breath. He'll sense it. He'll feel it. And he will act on that. And if I resist, he'll blood test me and I will probably fail the legal limit. So I'm probably screwed. I'm going to get reckless driving and I'm going to get a DUI. And I'm kind of cooked. And he says to me, have you been drinking? I'm like, yes, a little bit. Now, I don't say, I know I'm over the limit, this or that, but I'm like, yes. I'm not like, no, officer, I had one drink yesterday. I'm like, yeah, I'm drinking a little bit. He's like, do you know what you did? I'm like, yeah, I was going like over double the speed limit. He's like, yeah, maybe it was 75. He's like, yeah, you're doing 75 and a 35. I'm like, license, insurance, all that, registration, hand it off to him. He goes back to his car. I sit in my car and I think, this is where I get my car impounded, a massive fine. I get a DUI and a reckless driving charge. All because I wanted to go up and see this woman that I was involved with at 3:30 in the morning. And honestly, had I simply gone the speed limit, would have been fine. I wasn't like across the road. I was just going fast on a straightaway. It's not like I would have done that up the hill. Not a defense, just an honest intellectual explanation that I wasn't like gone where I didn't know what I was doing. I just was like driving up this long stretch thinking it's the middle of the night. I'll be fine. He comes back to my car and he looks at me and says, holding my driver's license, registration, and insurance card in his hand, "Do you know who I am? Do you recognize me?" Now, the reason this story is important is I want you to remember what I said about the people who go, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am, officer?" He said to me, "Do you know who I am? Do you recognize me?" I'm like, "I do not." He's like, "You really don't?" I'm like, "I do not. Should I?" He's like, "Yeah, maybe." And he proceeds to tell me that he and his wife and his small daughter came on my Fox show, on my Fox syndicated show. She had a hearing issue and had a cochlear implant right when they were, this is, 25 years ago, when they were new and very kind of risky advanced medical procedure. And he's like, "We came on your show. You recognize me now." Now, here's where I could easily say, "Sure, totally, man. How you doing?" But again, I'm not trying to sell who I am, nor am I trying to lie. I'm like, "Honestly, officer, I'm sorry. I don't recognize you." And then he explains, "Came on your show with my wife," because he says I was on your Fox show. I'm like, it's like, "With my wife and my daughter who had a cochlear implant." And he says, "And remember, you talked to us," because I had a live audience and I go have guests in the audience. And I was like, and he's like, "And you kind of brought our story to light in a really humane and gentle way." And at that point, I do genuinely remember him. Not up until then, but then I remember, because I remember the family and the kid. And I'm like, "Oh my God, yes, I absolutely remember it." I'm like, "I'm sorry I didn't remember right away, but totally remember you now." Because I did. At that point, it was honest. I was like, "Oh my God, I do remember them. They were vulnerable, they were young, they were worried about their daughter." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, it meant a lot to us." He's like, "You really made us feel heard. We were vulnerable. We know how the business works. We've been brought on a show. We wanted attention to help our daughter, but you didn't take advantage of us. You made us feel heard, seen, protected." I'm like, "Wow, that is awesome. Thank you for that. How's your daughter?" "She's not doing great right now." I'm like, "I'm really sorry to hear that." Now, at this point, I will be honest with you. I'm ready to get my DUI, my reckless driving, and the whole thing. But I'm glad I made a difference in this guy's life. I'm not like, "Well, thank you, officer. So can I go?" I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm really sorry about that. And I'm really glad that what I did on that show made a difference for you." Because that's how I did my show. I did it with integrity. I did it with care. I did not want to ever exploit anyone. And he looked at me and he's like, "Well, we never forgot it and never will." And he hands me my driver's license, insurance card, and registration. Now, he'd asked me before what I was doing. I told him driving up to see this woman up top of the hill. And he's like, "Drive up there, get where you're going. Make me one promise. You will park your car and not drive again tonight." Meaning, I know you've been drinking and you shouldn't be driving and I shouldn't let you drive. I could impound your car right now. Drive up there, park, don't drive again. And I'm like, "Wow, thank you. I will. I promise you I will park the car, not drive again. And thank you for that." And he said to me, "Thank you for what you did for us." That's a relationship. Whether it took 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whether it's 40 years. That wasn't a extraction. That wasn't a "you owe me." That wasn't a "do you know who I am?" That was a "Hey, I don't even recognize you." But he's like, "I remember what you did for me. Thank you. It made a difference. I'm doing something for you." That's how the world should work. Sadly, it's not how most of us operate. We operate transactionally. I'm going to give you something and get something. I'm going to extract something and give as little as possible. I'm going to tell you who I am, transaction, and make you feel like if you don't do something, I'll cause you pain. Transactions. Relationships build on it. I mean, it's the old thing with the Godfather in the movie, like twisted, warped, whatever. If the Godfather owed you a favor, he'd honor it. There's a certain power and trust in that. and a beauty in organic relationships. We don't build relationships. I will say to people, don't worry about the deal. Don't worry about the transaction. Worry about the relationship. If you build a relationship, a real relationship, the transactional part will happen or it won't. The more important part is the relationship. So, brings me to the Senate candidate in Minnesota, the Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, who goes on a Somali TV station in Minnesota wearing a hijab in a mall. Right now, meanwhile, you've all followed the fraud, the scandal with the Somalis, some of the Somalis. I'm not saying it's all Somalis, but that's plaguing Minnesota. And obviously, the Somali community is a big part of Minnesota. But if you're a Muslim woman, you wear hijab, it's a sign of subservience or obedience. I'm going to call it subservience. It's modesty. It's obedience to God. I think it's subservience to men as well. She also, she's very far left. She wore, not on that show, but she wore a Protect the Trans Kid shirt with a knife on it, saying, when our children tell us who they are, as grown-ups, our job is to listen and believe them. Okay, got so many issues with this. First of all, your job is not to listen to them and believe them. They're your children. Your job is to ask them and understand and protect them. And when they're adults, let them make informed adult decisions. But wearing the hijab is just what I'm talking about. It's not about a relationship. You didn't build a relationship with this community. Imagine if I went out and wore anything. Imagine if I wanted to connect with the Black community, I'd put on dreads or a yarmulke because I wanted to connect with the Jewish community. It's almost cultural appropriation. It's so offensive. It's not relationship. It's transactional. I'm going to do this to appeal to you. It's just so what we've become and so disgusting. And just leaves me kind of thinking, well, leads me back to the trans shirt. 2019 Democratic states filed a lawsuit against Trump and RFK Jr. And HHS, Department of Health and Human Services, saying after they said treatments, puberty blockers, hormone therapy, gender surgeries can't be done on children. And they filed a suit. What is wrong with these people? You want to allow for teenagers to get hormone therapy, gender surgeries, and puberty blockers. These are teenagers. And you think it's a good idea to allow them to choose to do this, even if their parents don't want them to. And by the way, even if their parents do want them to, because the kid said, oh, this is me. You think it's a good idea to let a hormone-driven teenager. Do any of you remember being teenagers? The worst time in your life to have to make massive decisions that would affect your biology and your future forever. You're going to change your mind 15 times about everything. But no, let's let you get not just puberty blockers, not just hormone therapy. Let's actually let you have gender transitioning surgeries as a teenager. But nope, because the threat that RFK said that we'll cut you off of Medicaid and Medicare if you do those treatments, 19 states file a lawsuit saying Kennedy can't unilaterally do this, can't fight it. Letitia James from New York, the Attorney General, says, you can't deny medically necessary health care. You're telling me gender surgeries are medically necessary health care for a teenager who's sorting out their identity? California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Vermont, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania join the suit. What is with you people? I'm not against someone having a gender affirming surgery. I'm not against having treatments to figure that out if that's where you're going. I'm against letting a minor do it. And I'm super against letting a minor do it without parental consent. And even more against the notion that this is somehow Logical, thoughtful, scientific healthcare. If your 15-year-old decides they aren't the gender that they were born with, the sexual born with, you should let them go ahead and change biology so that they would possibly can't go back and fix it. Because they think that right now, versus having them wait till they're a little older, more mature. And that if you don't give it to them, you're denying them their best health care. The best health care. That's like if your kid thinks they should go do drugs for the next 6 months, year, I love you, so I'm going to let you just do all the drugs you want because that's what you think you want and need. Is that a responsible parent? No. And this isn't responsible medicine, and it's not responsible thinking. But that's where we've come. That's what we've gotten to. All right, I'm wrapping up. I said I would bring it back to Trump. One of Trump's gifts is he does have an ability to create relationship-oriented things. One of his weaknesses is he seems to have such a massive ego. And putting his name on the Kennedy Center is so offensive. Just let it be the John F. Kennedy Center of Performing Arts. Don't make the Donald J. Trump and John F. And don't put your name first, especially. I mean, it's... And the plaques in the White House mocking your predecessor presidents. Even Joe Rogan is like, what are you doing? It's below the presidency. It's below who you should be. You're not winning anything. And when your ego gets too big, Mr. President, when your ego gets too big, and you can hate me if you never let me anywhere near anything you do, but if your ego gets too big and you let everything be too much about you, you lose the very thing you can give people. It's a version of no longer being about relationship. Powerful. I'm so big. I can do whatever you will coalesce. It's not how you build coalitions. It's relationships. It's not how you build trust with voters. On a personal level, it's not how we should be doing anything. Many of us live in a transactional state. If you think A or do B, I'm not going to be your friend, your over to dinner anymore. I'm not going to talk to you. Look at the relationship you have. I have members disagree with politically so deeply, but our relationship is bigger than our political differences. We can agree to disagree. We can even argue. We can choose not to talk about it, but that doesn't undercut our relationship, which is foundational, and what that means and what we want another. We need to have relationships, not we've become more and more a society based on transactional interactions, which includes social media, how we respond, my likes, my things I post, my this, my that. It's all part of a transactional framework. Transactional frameworks will ultimately undercut all real value. Real value, and by the way, AI will be very transactional. Real value will come in relationships. And sadly, some people are starting to now form those relationships with AI, like as if ChatGPT is your friend. ChatGPT, the AI, is smart. Form a relationship with you. Like, we need to heed that warning. We need relationships more than we need deals. And we need some deeper sense of moral clarity and an ability to step past all of these things, whether it's whether it's the woman in Providence in Rhode Island, whether it's Trump and his naming stuff, whether it's the 19 states suing because kids should be allowed to decide to chop their balls off if that's what they want and they can't put them back on. We're not neutering humans. Well, we are, but we shouldn't be. Weird way to end the show, but Merry Christmas. I will be back right before New Year's for our Monday show. Appreciate you listening. Have a good one. And take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, but also think about the core message underneath. Relationships matter. Transactions are a result of that. Some good, some bad. I'm Rob Nelson. Thanks for watching.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker?
It's good to see you. Listen,
If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together